Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden to preview the second round series between the Winnipeg Jets and Montreal Canadiens, fresh off their 7-game comeback victory over the top-seeded Maple Leafs in round one. Now, some people might call their previous opponents paper tigers, that being the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs. But both those teams have very talented rosters, and I think the Jets and Canadiens should not be taken lightly, even after the completely different paths they took to victory in round one. It is interesting to note that both Montreal and Winnipeg have the lowest odds to win the Stanley Cup right now at plus 1,600 apiece. So outside of Canada, apparently not too much faith in a Canadian team getting it done. But I think we might have a little bit more faith in these teams, Steele. We'll see what you have to say about that. Winnipeg, of course, shut down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in their 4-game sweep of Edmonton, while Montreal battled back down 3-1 on the strength of some superb goaltending from Carey Price, timely scoring, and fantastic defense against Toronto's top line. Steele, I want to start with the goalies in this one, which probably is no surprise because this might be the best goaltending battle we're going to get all playoffs. Connor Hellebuyck is 4-0 with a playoff best .950 save percentage, 1.6 goals against average, and a shutout, while Carey Price boasts a .932 save percentage, 232 goals against average, and of course, that all-important shutout in Game 7. Hellebuyck is the defending Vezina Trophy winner, and Price has recaptured his all-world form, seemingly getting better every game in round one. But if you looked at the regular season stats, you think Winnipeg had a big advantage in goal. Do you think that's the case here, or has playoff Price closed that gap?
Yeah, I think playoff Price has closed that gap. And I don't even think we should be talking about the regular season because once the playoffs start, it's a completely different mindset and it's a completely different atmosphere. So I still believe that Carey Price is a top 5 goalie in this league. And if you look at the stats over his last 3 playoffs run, he has a 196 goals against average with a .934 save percentage in those last three playoff runs. So he's been spectacular when Montreal needs it the most. And obviously, with the regular season being the regular season, he's not the best at times. When it matters the most, he comes and he shows up to play. So I think, obviously, with Montreal having Carey Price as their starting netminder and him being fully healthy now, they should have a lot of confidence going into this series against the Winnipeg Jets. But on the other side, Hellebuyck is a top 5 goalie as well, probably top 2 just behind Andrei Vasilevskiy. So I expect this series to be very similar to what the Montreal-Toronto series was, very low-scoring games with a lot of great defense from the Montreal Canadiens and both those goalies shutting down those spectacular forwards they have up front. So I really do find that it could go a long way.
What I love about these two goalies is they're both so calm under pressure. It seemed like Carey Price was almost seeing the game in slow motion in round one. It was just incredible to watch. He would make a save and just calmly bat the puck out of midair into the corner, or, he seemed unbeatable on his glove side. Things that all world goal scorers taking point blank shots, and he wasn't phased whatsoever. And of course, a lot has been made of Winnipeg's defense and how many high danger chances their opponents have gotten. Connor Hellebuyck is used to that, and he's ready for anything that Montreal can throw at them. Let's talk a little bit about the guys outside of the crease. Both teams had contributions up and down their lineups in round one. Tyler Toffoli led Montreal with 5 points, but 14 of their players got on the score sheet. Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler led the Jets with 5 points as well, and they actually had 16 players with at least 1 point. Do you expect more balanced team scoring in this series, or are there particular players you expect big things from?
Yeah, I expect it to be a little bit more balanced. Obviously, Toronto was struggling towards the end of the season, obviously on their power play and just throughout the entire playoff series against the Montreal Canadiens, especially from those top guys, Matthews and Marner. But I expect big things from the Montreal Canadiens defense here. And if they can't generate any kind of offense or, any more productivity in the offensive zone, I don't think it's going to be going far for the Montreal Canadiens. They only had 2 points from their defensemen in that entire series in those 7 games. Both their points were on the power play and both their points were secondary assists. So I think Montreal needs big expectations from those guys like Jeff Petrie, who had a stellar year, a Norris Trophy kind of year to say the least. But when you have guys like Shea Weber who have one of the hardest shots in the NHL, Jeff Petrie who can just make plays happen like that, I think they really need to depend on their defensive here going into this series to be a little bit more offensive minded here. But it's definitely going to be a tougher series for sure. Obviously, with the Toronto Maple Leafs struggling in that first round.
Bingo, Steele. That's exactly what I was thinking coming into this, that if Montreal's defense can contribute a little bit more, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to beat the Winnipeg Jets. And great call on Mark Scheifele there in the first round. He had an awesome series at both ends of the ice. And I just want to mention a couple Montreal players who I thought were fantastic. Of course, Tyler Toffoli with those five points, maybe one of the best signings of the entire year. But to me, this series changed when Cole Caulfield came into it, because every time he gets the puck on his stick, even if he doesn't score, even if he doesn't get an assist, he opens things up. He gets people out of position. He gets people scrambling. There's rebounds. I thought he played absolutely great. He's a great game breaker, in my opinion, for Montreal. So I do think their defense are going to come through. I actually think overall they have better defense than Winnipeg did. So I think they can definitely flip that script here in the second round. Now, you mentioned the power play as well for the Maple Leafs, not having much success against Montreal. And sometimes the smallest margins can tilt a matchup. So I want to dive into both teams' special teams units here, which I think is Winnipeg's biggest advantage in this series. They sneakily had the 7th best power play this season and scored on 30% of their opportunities against Edmonton. Montreal was a pedestrian 17th in the regular season, and they started 0 for 14 against Toronto, but like you mentioned, broke out in the final 2 games, scoring 3 power play goals on just 5 opportunities. Now, on the other side, the Canadiens' penalty kill this season was a dismal 23rd, but like you mentioned, it showed up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Jets were just above average at 13th. So do you think Montreal can keep their momentum going with the man advantage, or do you see the Jets special teams tilting this series their way?
Well, just before I answer that question, just to keep going on what you said about Cole Caulfield, we can't forget about Jesper Kotkaniemi as well. When they both came into the lineup, they generated a lot of confidence and offense for that Montreal Canadiens team. So they had a lot of buzz going from those young guys and depended on them a lot. And Kotkaniemi's been really great for them in the playoffs. So those 2 young guys, they have the Montreal Canadiens have a bright future with those 2 young guys, as well as Nick Suzuki as well. But it's really hard to say with the special teams here from the Winnipeg Jets as well as the Montreal Canadiens. Winnipeg, like you said, they were 30%. So they're 30% so far in the playoffs playoff season so far. 4th best in the postseason right now. And Montreal has the best PK right now at 87%. So it's one of the best power plays, going up the best penalty kill. So it's going to be a little tough to see what happens, but with that being said, even though Montreal was the best PK team so far this postseason, they were going up against one of the worst power play teams in the Toronto Maple Leafs, just struggling towards the end of the season, obviously struggling in that first round matchup. So with the Winnipeg Jets being stacked up front on both their power play units, especially that first one with Scheifele, Ehlers being moved up, of course, sometimes Blake Wheeler, Neil Pionk as well. So it's a very aggressive power play from the Winnipeg Jets, but you can't forget about how aggressive the Canadiens are on the penalty kill. We saw it in Game 1 with Paul Byron scoring that shorthanded goal. And then back in the regular season, they had 9 shorthanded goals total to the end of the regular season. So as the Montreal Canadiens are on the penalty kill, they can be very aggressive and get a lot of breakaways there. So the Winnipeg Jets have to be careful with being too cute on the blue line and just getting the puck, moving it around what they did in that first round against the Edmonton Oilers. So it's definitely going to be a tough call for both these teams on the special teams.
Well, prediction time, Steele. How do you see this series playing out?
Well, if the Montreal Canadiens defense can start producing a little bit more offensively, and I believe that they can, I have the Montreal Canadiens in 6. And, it's no discredit to what the Winnipeg Jets have done this year. I believe they've been a fantastic team, but I just believe Carey Price is in a different zone and a different element of what we've seen him in the past. So I think Carey Price obviously can steal this series against the Winnipeg Jets. against those superstars that I've mentioned on the Jets team. And if those Canadian defense can start producing a little bit more, then I believe the Montreal Canadiens can move on.
Really even matchup, but I'm going to go the other way with the Winnipeg Jets in 6 games. And we saw the way the Colorado Avalanche came out after they had that big rest and the Vegas Golden Knights got pushed all the way to Game 7. I just feel like Montreal is going to be physically and mentally drained after that series with Toronto. Just what it took for them to come back down 3-1 like that. And I just feel like putting that much into the first round series, that's going to give the Jets a big time advantage here coming into round 2. So that's going to do it for today's preview. On behalf of Steele Roden, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.